And are we live? Great, thank you. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the, I think, second or third budget and facilities meeting we've had of the 2020-2021 school year. We are going to try a different form of taking community comments for everybody who's watching. We're going to ask that you email BOE@portnet.org with a budget and facilities question in the subject matter so that we can address them. We will try to leave some time at the end of this meeting for community comments. However, know that if we don't get to all of the comments, we will make an attempt to, we will answer you via email and ensure that all of those comments are included in the meeting minutes so that they will be part of the public record. So make sure that when you send your comments, that is also how you are hoping to have that represented. Please include your name in your comments, as we are not taking anonymous comments. And that said, I think we're going to start off this meeting with our Director of Facilities, Jim Rostano, to give us an update on all of the many, many things that his staff has been working so hard on all summer and into the school year, and continues to work hard on to make our facilities safe for our children in this time of COVID. Jim?
Okay. Just want to, I guess I'll just give a brief explanation of what we've been doing. A lot of cleaning. At night we're fogging, and again, high touch areas. It's a constant thing that it is becoming just a little challenging, and I have been observing the cleaning aspect during the day with the lunch periods. When we go back to full occupancy, we're probably going to have a little bit more of overtime, or possibly need some a little extra help with that. And again, we're still monitoring. We're 2 weeks in, and we're keeping our eye on that. All items that were ordered were delivered, with the exception of the portable sinks. There seems to be a backlog on that. They were promised for the last week of August. Still have not received those. It's a day-by-day thing. It's a constant phone call. We did call and make another order of a different type of sink to try to get that, and that should be in either today, tomorrow, or Monday. And again, it's all according to deliveries, and we're trying. Desk shields we were able to get those in place for the opening of school. Unfortunately, there's a need for a side panel that we're working on. I'm working with the manufacturer right now to work out a side panel extension. That we have a prototype that we're working on getting it approved to see if it's okay. We may have to make some more adjustments on that.
Jim, if I could just hop in for a sec,
Yeah.
Just to clarify the side extension. The desk shields that we have right now are okay. There were some concerns that were brought up from our teachers that in one of our committee meetings, that it seemed like they were a little short as far as the sides are concerned. When the architect or the engineer, when they viewed the desk shields, they were approved. They're fine. They're actually used in other school districts on Long Island. So the desk shields are okay. But there were concerns or a concern brought from some of our teachers at one of our committee meetings. And, we're exploring to see what those side panels, how much the cost would be, and if they're feasible. But what we have right now, I just want to be clear about this, that they're okay. So I don't put any worry out there to the community that that's the case. It's not the case. They were approved. Everything is okay. We're just looking to enhance what we have there already.
Correct.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you for the clarification, and that's exactly correct. Again, on the other note, that the engineer walk through the building with me, all buildings, and we did get a report with some minor adjustments that have to be made, and we've been making those adjustments as I speak. They're happening right now. Some fans have to be added, some transfer grills have to be added, but we're working on the list. It's a short list, but it's a little tedious, and we're getting through that now. And again, this possibly might need some staffing going forward for cleaning as we reoccupy fully in the coming weeks.
Jim, do you mind if I'm going to jump in real quick?
Yep.
The engineer's report did come back, and the engineer's report gave us a thumbs up as far as everybody being in school. That's why we're in school. But there are some things that the engineer is recommending that we take care of. Much of the work can take place in-house. So Jim has crews that are doing some of those adjustments right now. And in the meantime, while we're making those adjustments, everything is okay. So I just want to be clear about that. And the second thing is the engineer report was, I know, shared with the teacher union, and it was shared with the board, of course. And so I'm glad that we took that step, because it allows us to look at some short-term things that Jim and his crew is focusing on, and then some longitudinal things that we will update the board about when it comes to having to make those decisions.
Thanks, Mike. Thank you, Jim. Jim, did you have anything else?
I think that's it.
I don't want to hog this, so this is the last time I'm speaking until I'm asked. I want to thank Jim and his incredible staff for getting everything here on time before the kids came back. The sink was, the sinks, I know you tried a few different vendors, Jim, to try to get them here as quickly as possible. And as soon as they do, we will let the community know. But I'm going to tell you, just like Ryan and his crew with technology for the computers to get here as quickly as they did, it's the same thing with Jim when it came to the HEPA filters. I'm not going to get into the details, but the HEPA filters, or the units, I should say, was another miracle that Jim happened and his incredible crew pulled off. They were delivered, installed over the weekend, and then ready to go. So I just wanted to say that before we move forward.
And Mike, I'll echo that. Jim, on behalf of the board, I have to thank you for you and all of your staff for your tireless work all summer long. And, that continues. I don't think I'm overstepping when I say that we are eternally grateful for how committed you are to our school district, to our students, and to making sure that the health and safety of our community here is maintained. And that means I think we all have an abundance of faith that is always your top concern. And so we thank you for that. I'm going to go to some questions of the board. Julie was first, and then Deborah.
I just was looking for a clarification, Jim. Thank you guys also for everything all the custodial staff is doing and continues to do as well. I echo those sentiments. Just a clarification on the sinks. Is it that none of the sinks have come in, or is it zero, right? We're at zero.
Zero have come in, and when I started sensing a problem, I reordered another batch of different types. And unfortunately, though,
They're also
getting the same. But one is, there's two different vendors, two different, they're all apologetic. It's just, I could push as hard as I can, but it's to no avail. And I do expect them in the definitely by next week.
Thank you for the clarification. I will let Deb ask her question, which I was going to do, but I'll let her do it because it's the same one. Go ahead, Deb.
Okay.
Thank you. So of course I thank everybody involved in getting our schools seaworthy, as I like to call it. I know it was Herculean, and I know it's ongoing, and I know it will continue on a daily basis while the kids occupy the school. So it doesn't stop just because school began. It actually probably has intensified. So I thank you. Also seeing daily reports from all over the country about shortages and all types of things coming out of China, including refrigerators and freezers. So it's affecting everybody on many, many levels, not just desks and sinks and so forth. regarding the sinks, do you have any idea, is there going to be an additional cost above and beyond, or the replacement sinks, I'm calling them, for the ones that haven't arrived yet? Is there an additional cost involved, or will we be on par with what you thought you were going to spend before?
Additional cost meaning for delivery or additional cost?
Are they more
for-
expensive, I
Are
think,
they
Jim?
more
Is this going to be a higher cost?
Yes.
No, they're holding their price, and the second batch that I ordered were actually less. They're a different style. They're more of a camping type thing, but it is appropriate for what we need it for. And just waiting, hoping to get them. So if they do all come together, we'll have more sinks.
Okay, great. So with the sink placement, is there a particular place within the building that the sinks must go? Or is it up to each building principal to put the sinks wherever they want?
That's how we're going to work it. We're going to work with the principal to see where the placement is, where the most traffic is, where it would benefit the building the best.
Okay.
Because right now, under normal conditions, we have enough sinks in the building but this is to enhance what we have. So it's not that we have to follow a code or we're deficient. This is to enhance what we have in the buildings to have more hand washing availability.
Okay, so if parents or kids want to know where these magical sinks are going to be, they ask their building principal, so they know where to go to wash their hands.
Yeah, I think when we would be better suited when they actually arrive and see the physical size and where they can fit the most efficient and appropriate places. We don't want to block areas in the hallway. So a lot of that is going to, govern where they go. So it's not just going to be there in the, middle of a hallway blocking a fire exit or something like that. So we do have to do some due diligence or, planning, when we get them. So it's going to be as they arrive, we will find the most appropriate spot for them.
Okay, and final question is a cost question about the desk shield extensions. Do you have any idea what that is going to run the district?
I don't have the cost as of yet.
I hope they're being kind to you. Okay, thank you.
Well, I be honest with you, the vendor, the desk shield vendor has turned out to be the best one. They're very responsive. They do what they say and they say what they do. So I feel confident that they will give us the best deal.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Jim, just to piggyback on the placement, do these have to have plumbing access, or are they sort of self-contained units?
Self-contained.
Okay. Emily, you had a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask for clarification for the community's sake or for the record that when we talk about an extra expense, and because I know that we've questioned it and it's been discussed in the past, and maybe Mary wants to talk about a little bit the process about how a school district is never prepays for anything. And so if Mary, I think you know what I'm getting at. So can you please explain for the community and for anyone here the process of the extra expense, what that means?
I think Emily's saying we didn't give these people credit card numbers. We haven't already been charged, and we don't have to get our money back. Right.
Yes, and
Yes,
I think, Mary,
yes.
if you could just give that process a little bit. Thank you.
The purchase order process, right?
Yes, good point, thanks.
That's very true, Emily. The school district never prepays. We do a purchase order. We have a variety of processes that we follow. And items are not paid for until we have both an invoice and a receipt from the specific building indicating that the items have been delivered and are in good order. Yes.
So when we say that we had to pay an extra X amount of money, it's not we've already paid another vendor because we've been asked by community members. how are we getting back the money we paid already? Like, and this is specific to the Chromebooks. Now Jim is referring to the sinks. So I'm just trying to anticipate that we don't get questions. Well, how are you going to get the money back for the sinks? We haven't paid for anything that hasn't been physically received in our building.
And I think
And I
that
think, right.
the issue
Go ahead,
with
Mary.
the Chromebooks was that we made a decision that we had to pay a premium in order to get Chromebooks on time for the opening of school, over and above what we had initially indicated to the board. But I don't think we've even gotten those invoices yet, even though we have the Chromebooks in hand.
Right. And just to make the point, when we talk about extra, it's just extra in the sense of the board was told it was going to cost $10 and now it's going to cost 15. But we didn't pay the other 10 plus another plus this 15. It's just that the items were more expensive. So that would be the extra. Larry?
Yeah, I just want to say, yeah, when we use the term pay, we agreed to pay. Now we actually budgeted higher or committed to a higher cost. But I think when people hear the word pay, they think we did cut a check. Just like if you're buying something personally, the company may say, give us a deposit. So I just want to be clear on our language that pay means budgeted or allocated, but not dispersed.
Thanks, Larry. Does anybody else have any facilities questions for Jim?
Beth, can I ask one more? I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Jim, for just clarification. So in the end, if the first batch of sinks come in, then we will incorporate them. You didn't cancel that order is what you're saying. So it's possible that we could have 50 sinks at one time by the end of all of this, is just for understanding.
Well, just for clarification, when I placed the original order, again, this was done before anybody even realized there was such a thing. I was able to order these, and I thought I would have them a long time ago. But after I did place the order and the word got out there, it seemed like the 25 was not enough. So that's why when I was not getting this delivery, I said, it's not going to hurt to place another order because we're going to need them. So, and it is a less expensive type of sink, but will be appropriate for the use. So yes, it will be 2 expenses, but a needed expense.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Jim.
Okay.
Thank you, Julie. Anybody else on the board want to ask any other questions related to the facilities work?
Can
Just
it
jump
be,
in.
I'm sorry, I should have.
Yes, just jump in. Go ahead. No, it's okay. I'm just asking you to jump in.
Can I ask about the roofs?
You know what, Deborah? As much as I would love to discuss the roofs, can we
No.
save that
Okay.
for another meeting? Because we have a
Sure.
lot to get through. It is clearly important. It is just not right now important. Triage, my friend. Does anybody else have anything else? Okay, the next item on our agenda is where we are at with the final cost for the one-to-one agenda, Mary. With the one-to-one initiative, Mary.
Certainly. I received an updated email from Ryan the other day indicating that the total cost is $1,844,692. Now, keep in mind that we are still receiving some straggling requests. Some teachers are asking for amplification of their voice, that their mics are not sufficient for remote learners. And so we are in the process of investigating various options and determining from each building how many more of these amplification systems will be needed. But as of the moment, we have $1,800,000.
Good Lord, Mary.
Please, it just seems like that much.
Thank you, Mary. And what's the difference between what we budgeted and that number?
We budgeted originally about $1,400,000 because the board did pass a resolution for $410,000 to be moved.
Okay.
Based on the need for the premium on the Chromebooks that were ordered.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any questions? I don't see anything in the chat, so if you
I
have
do.
anything on this, go
I have
ahead.
a question about that. Does that number, that 1.8 million, include professional development or training?
No,
Okay.
no,
Because I thought the original number did, or am I incorrect about that?
it
You're right, Nora,
includes
the original did.
additional technical services for $192,000, but it does not include the staff developer or outside professional development.
Okay. Deborah, I think you were
So,
next.
I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I know Deborah was next, but I just want to go based on what Nora said. Mary, the original numbers that we were given, I believe, where in the 1.4 did have the professional development included and the outside consulting services included, and it did not have tech. I think we didn't add any actual personnel at that point. We had added, it was part of the consulting services. So I guess the question is, back to Nora's point, if the original 1.4 was budgeted that had included these services, would the difference then be greater, I guess is the question, because it
I
looks
would
like
say
it would be
the
greater.
difference will be greater because the outside consulting, which is tech consulting, not staff development consulting, that is part of this total. But the staff development for teachers is based on my understanding that we will be hiring a staff developer. And if Mr. Shields wants to correct me, I do not think that that has happened as of yet. So it's not included in Ryan's updated numbers.
You're correct. We have not hired that person yet.
Right, but Ryan's numbers had included the consulting for the tech department. That's what we're asking about. And Ryan's numbers had included the
For the tech department is in. It is 190.
Okay, that was what Nora's so okay, that's where the confusion was. So based on Nora's question, the original 1.4 has included in it the staff development for the tech department. That was part of the consulting services.
It is outside tech, whether it's development or tech work. Right. That's really a Ryan question. I see Dr. Hines will be able to jump in here.
Yeah, so I think I understand where you're coming from, Emily. The initial June, because we're going back to June with the original amount, yes, and I clearly remember that. I think it was around 1.4, around there. I think what was the difference is both the position that Dr. Shields just referred to was initially part of that. Now it's not. Now we are looking, but the tech support is what Ryan needs. That was always a part of it, and that's still there. And so we haven't hired that person yet, but we'll soon.
You good, Emily? Deborah?
Mary, are you able, sorry, Ms. Callahan, are you able to tell us where the bulk of the overage has come from? I would take a wild guess and say the Chromebooks themselves, but I don't want to be presumptuous. But if you know, could you share with us, please?
I would say the Chromebooks, as we know, that was $400,000. I don't have a budget versus actual expenses here, but clearly $400,000 for Chromebooks did skew his original budget estimate of $1.4 million.
Some of the software costs that were at our hands.
I would also add, the web cameras, the tripods, all those ancillary pieces as well, certainly added, which weren't there initially.
Julie?
Thank you. Not to beat this horse, just again, I'm like the clarification queen today. So for the one-to-one initiative, from a staffing perspective, we have 2 IT technicians, which you said was $191,000 roughly. There is, Dr. Shields informed us, the idea of a technology professional developer, which is a staff position not yet hired. And then there's the discussion of the consulting group, correct? So that's a staffing consulting group. And is there a cost associated with that we know of, Mary?
Julie, just to clarify, you're talking about the PD for the teachers for everything? Is that what you mean?
Is the consulting group providing the PD for the teachers? I may not be understanding. I thought the consulting group was providing assistance to the technology staff. And if that's the case, if Mary's nodding her head yes, then is that identified somewhere as an expense for the consulting group, which I think are different than the 2 IT technicians that are staff?
Well, they are the same.
They are the
That
same.
is
Thank you.
because
Thank
they are
you.
not employees of the district.
Thank you. That is perfect explanation. Thank you.
Nora?
I just was wondering, Mike, were you saying, and Mary, that the microphones and the cameras and the tripods are considered part of the one-to-one, and that is included in the 1.8?
That is correct.
Oh, okay, good. Thank you.
This is basically not a breakdown of, I think, the one-to-one as much as a breakdown of all of the technology
I would agree with you.
in general.
Yeah,
That we,
no, good.
that we maybe we should stop calling it one-to-one and calling it technology needed for remote and virtual.
But distance
Can I
learning.
just,
Right.
Distance
this is all, Mary, this is all based on what you sent us, right? The entire board got this documentation of the breakdown
The
Right.
Yes.
spreadsheet, yeah.
this week? Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Does anybody else have anything about the tech? Any questions about the tech costs? No. Okay, let's move on to the, Mary, I think I'm going to go out of order again and move to the additional staffing requests so that we have sort of the whole picture before we go into total costs and what we're spending. Does that work for you?
What is your next question relative
I was
to
gonna move on to the request for additional staffing before we review sort of the total picture of pandemic costs. Does that make more sense?
Sure.
Or do you want to do the total cost first? I just feel like we should talk about all the things we're spending money on and then talk about the total picture at the end.
Yeah. Well,
Mike, go ahead, Mary.
Well, we do have a request for a physical education teacher, and I know that either Dr. Shields or Dr. Mioli can speak clearly to the need for that.
Yeah.
I think would you like to go one by one?
No, what I think what we'll do here, if it's okay, is I'm just going to kick this over to Dr. Hines, Dr. Shields, and Dr. Mioli to discuss all of the sort of up in the air additional staffing requests. Is that good for you, Dr. Hines?
Sure is. So why don't we start with the phys ed teacher, and then we can talk about the EAs that are necessary for all 7 schools. So either Dr. Shields or Dr. Mioli, why don't we just talk about the phys ed teacher, the need for the phys ed teacher, and then I guess really what the price point is, and we can field questions from there.
I can start, Dr. Shields, if you'd like.
Sounds good.
And then you can speak clearly about it. Oh, all right. All right. So we are requesting a one full-time physical education teacher at the elementary level. And I just have to back up a little bit to have everyone understand that one of the things that we tried to do at the elementary level, in addition to keeping students in smaller cohorts, was to also limit exposure of students and teachers to as few a number of people as possible. So we tried to limit traveling between buildings and among buildings of special area teachers, including physical education teachers. and reassign them to individual buildings so they wouldn't be going back and forth. And also within each building, having the special area teachers, including the phys ed teachers, go to the classrooms in many cases, so that again, it lessened the amount of walking through the halls and exposure in terms of that. So when we reassigned all of the those teachers, and it included a number of special areas, we need this one additional phys ed teacher so that we have 2 in each school who can deliver the phys ed program. For those of you who don't know, every student has a special every day at the elementary level, and this also enables us to keep 1 special for every grade level. On a related topic, but not part of the discussion here budgetarily, it's also why we had the PEP esteem teacher move to the elementary school, so that we would have 6. We would have 1 in each building. So in order to have every grade level covered every day, we need 6, 1 for K, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And phys ed, as I'm sure you know, is required to be the equivalent of twice a week. So the resulting schedule for all 5 of the elementary schools includes 6 teachers, 1 music, 1 art, 2 PE, 1 library, and 1 PEP esteem teacher who go for 2 weeks at a time. They stay in a grade level, and again, to minimize exposure, and then they shift. So the only way that that's possible in all 5 schools is to have this phys ed teacher.
Thank you for that explanation. Dr. Shields or Dr. Hines, do you have anything to add to this before I take it back to the board?
I mean, I can add the fact that my recommendation to the board to move forward with this is based on what the elementary principals would like to see, and certainly our cabinet here as well. Believe me, we have thought long and hard about what this additional expense is. We're very aware of that, and as Mary, Ms. Callahan will talk about when we talk about the collective whole, as far as how much everything is post what we budgeted for, we're trying to keep these costs at a minimum. The bottom line is, this is what we need in order to operate to move forward.
Thank you, Dr. Hines. Dr. Shields, do you have anything that you'd like to add?
No, the only thing I would add is that, by doing this, we're no longer sharing 3 elementary PE teachers across 4 schools. And, Dr. Mioli was referring to that, but some people are really looking for the specifics. So that's what we're doing. We're limiting that travel among 4 schools. And I think that's at the focus of the safety piece of this.
Thank you. And Dr. Mioli, is it also safe to say this is part of how we have the appropriate coverage for the classes, and without this, that coverage becomes difficult?
That is correct. And I just probably should have also added that this was in consultation with Ms. Joannan, who's the Director of Health and Physical Education.
Thank you, Dr. Mioli. Larry, you had something?
Yeah, a couple of questions. So right now, pre-pandemic, we had enough PE teachers to cover PE among the schools. And I know that there's certain travel time embedded in it. So now we actually have more FTEs of PE teachers, which I understand are needed. I guess my question is, are we going to be able to in any way enhance the program because we now have actually more time involved for PE than more staff time involved for PE than we did? Or can those teachers have some time where they can be redeployed to provide other support in other areas as we look to sort of cover the virtual learning program and things like that, and we're looking to push people around? I assume PE teachers are K6 certified. They're not just certified SPE, or am I wrong about that?
I think they're K-12, Larry.
K-12, but okay, so they actually can be a help anywhere where we might need them. So this is in essence giving us a little bit of a buffer, even though we're picking up a whole. Basically, we're picking up a whole unit for something that we might only need a half-time person for, but you can't hire that way. But we do have some extra resources to use elsewhere in the district. Is that sort of correct?
The short answer is yes. I'll just give you two examples. One is that we have the elementary principals have been looking at ways to schedule recess with some of the phys ed teachers. Again, as you might imagine, when they go outside during this part of the year and in the spring, we're still trying to social distance, and it's good to have organized activities during recess. So that's a part of it. Also, even though the two teachers are only with one grade level at a time for 2 weeks, they are creating during some of that time asynchronous lessons, so recorded lessons and materials to use so that every student has phys ed twice a week throughout the whole year.
Thank you.
Thank you. Emily, I think were you next?
Yes, thank you. So thank you for explanation of your recommendation. I appreciate it. I have a question because it's been brought up and I would like maybe some clarification. We recently hired an assistant athletic director. Our athletic director who retired is actually on as a consultant right now. So my question is there a way for us to use those two people, those two PE teachers, because I imagine they're certified PE teachers. I know that they're certified PE teachers. Would there be a way to use those two particular teachers instead of hiring a PE teacher? Would we be able to maybe use them to cover and to put the program that you're asking for in place? Not saying we should. I would just like to have an explanation so that we can understand the process.
So let me start and then see if Dr. Shields and Dr. Mioli will chime in. If we had to on an emergency basis, I think it's always all hands on deck. I wouldn't recommend us utilizing them in that capacity right now. For a myriad of reasons. So for me, for right now, moving forward with this physical education teacher, I think it definitely helps us. But we will need them for other things moving forward. And to be honest with you, with our new hire, we have to think about when Stephanie is not here next year. And so the more on-the-job training that this gentleman receives now is certainly going to benefit the district in the future.
Anyone else have anything to add to answer Emily's question? And let's go to Rachel.
Actually, Larry and Emily have hit my questions.
Okay. Hold on. Takes forever to open this new. Deborah, then?
As I recall, I think the amount budgeted for this new position, I thought initially was somewhere in the 90s. I want to say 95 or 96,000. I don't know if my memory is correct. Is that still the amount? Is that still the ask?
I am budgeting it at 104,300. It should probably even be a few $1,000s higher. And the reason for that is if you look at last year's teacher schedule, someone with a master's step 1 is 66,479. Someone with a master's plus 15 is 69,447. Add to that the district's cost for health insurance. Social Security and the cost for the teacher pension contribution, which is over 10% of salary, and the cost of adding to the benefit trust fund, you come out anywhere between $105,000 and $110,000.
Is my memory playing tricks on me, or at the last meeting, the full board meeting, I think, where we had the discussion, was the number somewhere in the 90s, or did I misunderstand?
I don't recall ever
But now it's
putting in writing that number. And you must remember that we are talking about budgets. I am not giving you to the penny the cost for something. I might round up by $1,000 or round down by $500 because it is a budget. But I think that that is an accurate number, unless Dr. Shields can tell me that he's going to hire someone with a BA for $59,000.
I just wanted to understood and was remembering correctly. Thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions? I don't see anything in the chat, so just jump in. If there are no other questions, can I just get a sense of the board? Can this position be put on next Tuesday's agenda so that we can officially move forward with this? If there's anybody that has any objections, please speak up now. Otherwise, I'll assume that we are prepared to move forward.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Emily.
I think we did. I think it was already on the agenda. I think right now,
Right,
if you remember, we
deciding if
approved
they
the
can
position.
hire, right.
So we just need to let them know. Right. So just,
Go ahead, Rachel.
I'm good with the recommendation, by the way.
Since I did publicly vote against this at the last meeting, I just want to thank you all for the additional information. I think, I'm still a little troubled by any expenditure we make right now, just because I know we've already dipped into way more than we have in the pot. And I'm very worried about next year, and I'm very worried about things that are going. But I did want to publicly say that because this has the backing of Dr. Hines and Dr. Maioli, and our elementary school principals are saying that we need this, I am going to support doing it, because I really do trust that you have done the legwork and a lot of the thinking to try and figure out if there is any creative idea to provide what we need to provide without an additional expense. And we just have to move forward being critical and thinking about the health of the district overall with all of these. But I appreciate the additional information and the additional explanation. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. And I think, you know what, to clarify, my question would be, can we put the person that's being hired on the next agenda? So I guess the answer to that question from everybody, as I'm seeing, must be a yes, because I don't see any no's. So if anybody has a no to that, please speak up. Otherwise, we're going to assume that the position, if Dr. Shields' team is done interviewing and ready to hire, that person can be placed on the next agenda.
The process will move forward now that we have your support, and I can't say that it'll be on next week's agenda, but we're appreciative of being able to put it on a future agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shields. I appreciate that. Okay, so now to the, go ahead, Larry.
This would be a two-step process, right? We would have to create the position, and then we would have to have it at another time fill a position, or is the position already created?
We voted to create it in that,
okay.
as Rachel was saying, in that, where she had voted against it. I think Deborah maybe abstained. I don't remember clearly, but we did approve it with a majority vote. So now it would just be moving the individual in our regular hiring process onto an agenda.
And that's when we would know what the exact cost is, and that's when we would be able to make a decision as to whether or not we want to fill that position at the time.
100%. But I think what we're saying now is that we're giving them sort of the go-ahead for this, position at the, estimated costs that we have and whatever. That they should continue the hiring process, that we would approve a person in the position for what we've discussed here. because we don't want them to jump through all those hoops and then say no. Anyway, all of that said, let's move on to the more frightening part of this meeting, which is the big picture. So I'm going to throw that over to Mary because I think we're all dreading this part.
Well, I hate to be the bearer of bad tidings all the time. I would say right now we are perfectly fine in our budget. We had budgeted for 241 EAs and TAs.
You know what, Mary? I'm sorry. Let me interrupt. Dr. Hines, as Emily just reminded me, we did not discuss the other personnel issues. I forgot that we had, that you had wanted to discuss the EAs and TAs now that Mary's mentioning it. And I can only see Emily in like a tiny thumbnail and she's waving her hands. So Dr. Hines, Dr. Shields, Dr. Mioli, the rationale and where we are with those additional positions that we need to create.
Sure. Let me begin, and then actually I could turn it over because Ms. Fennick's going to be part of this conversation as well. This is something we have been working on tirelessly, keeping in mind what the overall cost would be. So let me start by saying clearly there's a lot of conversations in our community regarding when all of our elementary students are coming back, right? So it's one of the many hot topics that are out there. And I can tell you, I look forward to all of our students coming back before October. So I just want to be very clear about that. The second thing is, in order to make that happen in the safest way possible, we have to look at additional personnel. And when we talk about additional personnel, we're looking at EAs and TAs. And with the initial conversation that we had, I think in our last budget meeting, we were looking at the possibility of looking at 6 additional EAs, per building, which equates to a lot of money. And again, keeping in the forefront of our mind safety, and then of course budget. We have something else that we would like to discuss with the board. I believe 6. We can't afford 6. I think it's something that we have to reduce, and so we are going to reduce. We're going to. I would like to see 3, as opposed to 6. I think 3 will be very helpful in order for us to move forward, and then I could turn it over to Ms. Fennick, Dr. Mioli, and Dr. Shields as far as the rationale for that, and more important, what they would be doing. I think it's important that you understand why that's taking place. So I don't know which one of the 3 of you would like to start off first.
I'll start.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I have been speaking a lot with all the principals in each school and talking about coverage that they need for the students. And the main responsibility of these additional aides would be to keep the children socially distanced. And also, at times, I'm sure, make sure children are staying masked as well. When I spoke to the principals, there were some main themes that they needed these aides for. One was for coverage for arrival and dismissal, especially dismissal right now at the elementary schools has been quite long, so we're trying to reduce that down. Bathroom monitoring, we're only allowing 2 students in the bathroom at one time, so we need aides for that. Lunch coverage is another big issue. We do need aides to deliver lunch, to help deliver lunch. We also have kids in classrooms and we have kids in cafeterias, so we need the aides to monitor and supervise, trying to keep children at least 6 feet apart. And then from lunch usually goes recess. And again, what we're doing is, especially at the elementary schools, the pods are staying together, which is important out on the playground. And so by keeping the pod together, we need an aide per pod, basically, because we don't want all the kids intermingling. Unfortunately, they need to stay with their own classes. So recess, the isolation room with the nurse. If the nurse for some reason can't be in the isolation room at the time a student is there, an aide would sit in and just monitor the child. So I talked about mask breaks. What else? You know, there's just so many ways that the aides are really, truly needed to help with the safety and health of the students right now. So we're asking, as Dr. Hines said, for at least 3, just to really maintain that appropriate distance. The principals, I really believe, I feel very strongly that the principals need these 3, at least these 3 aides. Just really, you know, help control the masses at the moment. You know,
So,
we want,
and I just want to jump in real quick, and thank you, Ms. Fennick. I appreciate you articulating what they would be doing. I was on a call, a meeting, really a Google meeting with my colleagues yesterday, and we had a very lengthy conversation as far as, which Ms. Callahan will talk about in a few minutes, post this one, about edited expenditures. So a school district budgeted X, and then how much more they spent, after that. And I'm going to tell you, in our surrounding districts, in one, I'm not going to name the districts, one hired 45 teachers, another one added 25 teachers, another one added 20 teachers. Now, the question becomes, how are they paying for that? And we can talk about that later when we talk about the possibility of using reserves or other options. But the reality is we are not alone when it comes to adding additional staff to make sure everybody has what they need. So I just want to contextualize this as we're talking about additional staff here. It is not outside of the norm compared to other districts. So I just wanted to mention that.
thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hines. Did Dr. Mioli or Dr. Shields want to add anything?
No, I don't think so.
Thank you. Dr. Mioli?
I think Ms. Fennick said arrivals and departures, but I just want to elaborate on just for a second. You know, the very beginning and the very end of the day at the schools is probably the most hectic. In the case of 2 of the elementary schools, for example, you have about 600 students coming in, about 100 staff members coming in, about another 100 support staff, and et cetera. So it's probably, the arrival and departure times are probably going to be the most used times for those paras, and it's a really important piece.
And also at the secondary level as well. I know Dr. Mioli specifically said elementary, but again, remember how many students we have at the middle school and at the high school, and we need all hands on deck.
I was just going to bring that up. We're talking about the elementary schools, but we're talking about all 7 buildings at this point. This is not a strictly elementary school conversation, correct?
Yes.
At the high school and the middle school, you're looking at bathroom coverage and other things that might be a little different than elementary.
Study, study locations coverage. There's just.
Thank you. I know. So we seem to focus on the elementary school, and I just want to make sure that we touch on the fact that this is a K-12, pre-K to 12 issue.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think Emily, you were first with a question.
Yes, thank you. So my question is, we are asking for an additional 3 per building, which gives us the 21 overall EAs, TAs. So I have 2 questions. One is, Dr. Hines mentioned that he absolutely would like to get our elementary students back into the buildings before October 1st, and that this would be a component necessary for that. So question 1 is, how quickly can we hire 21 EAs and TAs? And it is today I really don't remember what today's date is. Oh, the 17th, September 17th. Can we get it done in time for a before October 1st start date? That's question 1. Question 2 is, we in the past, I believe, discussed adding EAs and TAs, or that we had already budgeted, if I'm not mistaken, additional EAs and TAs for our reopening. So how many overall additional EAs and TAs would this be, is my question.
Like from last year to this year, you mean?
Yeah, right. So I think, I don't remember what the number was.
Let's be specific. We're talking about how many additional building, taking out the special ed students and other things.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
I-
Yes,
I-
because, I'm sorry, Beth, we should make, again, for anyone who is watching from the community who may be new to this process, the special ed EAs and TAs are dictated basically based by their accommodation. So it's not at the discretion of the school district for those positions. So I'm asking for the positions that were at our discretion.
Okay. I just need to clarify one thing, Emily. We're hiring EAs, not TAs, just the aides for this
Okay.
additional coverage.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
And-
So, Elaine, I'm sorry, Ms. Fennick, could you also, for the community's sake, for anyone who's watching, explain the difference of what an EA is and a TA is, so that perhaps just for,
Sure.
for the record, we have it clear. Thank you.
Okay. So an aide, a teacher aide or educational assistant, as we call them, is really a person that her job or his job responsibilities is to monitor the students, supervision. That's really their main focus. For the teacher assistant, who is actually New York State certified, they are more involved with the instructional piece. So they can actually help with instruction in the classroom with the teacher. So that's really the difference. One is instructional, one is supervision.
And then
If I can answer your question, at least the first one, right now we have hired at least 10 additional aides in addition to vacancies that we've had already. That will be on Monday night's agenda. Hopefully we'll hire a few more tomorrow. And so I definitely feel confident that we would have the 21 additional aides for the October 1st opening. Now the
And
budget piece, Mary would have to answer that.
I don't think she wasn't asking the budget piece, but do you know offhand how many additional, that last question that she was asking, how many additional this is, like from a normal year to right now altogether, that we would want to have?
So we actually have moved 4 aide positions that were in excess at the end of the school year into these additional positions. So that would be 4 less. So
Okay. You know what, Elaine, that question was a little bit complicated. Emily, can we perhaps
I'm still
put that in?
confused.
Could I?
No.
jump in?
Well, I would say jump in.
Mary,
Mary, if you can answer it, and if not, this is information that could
Could
be
I-
provided to the board in the packet. So,
I think I can give you some additional information. I'm going to speak globally for a minute because some TAs are in the regular instructional area. They're not just in the special education area. So budget-wise, we had budgeted 96 TAs for this year. And we had budgeted 146 EAs. So far, based on this morning, we have 142 of the 146. But as Elaine said, she has 10 at least that are being recommended. If you agreed after today's meeting, she has applicants for 10 positions, which would then bring us to 150,
156.
I think 100, right,
52.
152. So overall, though, we've budgeted for the 244 overall, right? Is that right? Yeah. 96,
So Mary,
42.
Mary,
Yeah.
242.
right. So this actually does answer my question exactly. So in our budgeted process, we had 146 EAs budgeted. We are now asking for an additional 21 EAs. We currently have 142 hired. We would be asking for those extra 4 to be hired, plus the 21 to bring us to the overall number. And that was without the TAs,
Elaine's shaking her head no.
Ryan, Elaine.
What I'm saying is we don't, that 4 from 142 to 146 is going to be part of the additional, will be part
Oh,
of
that it
21.
includes the,
Right.
okay. So you're saying that the 100,
Well, in
so
terms
it's not
of
120. Right, so then it's not
terms of
going to be
budget, but
21.
Elaine says in terms of actual needed staff, if we need 4 less versus last year, and then we're adding 21, then the difference is really 16.
Correct. That's
for
what I want.
budget reasons.
17,
Correct.
17, 17. 21 minus 4 is 17.
Right. So
Right?
budgetary, we would be
Oh,
adding 17. So to our budget, we would be increasing our budget number by 17 EAs. That would be the increase. So there's a clarification or a change on that. Okay. Thank you. I know this
Elaine,
is
is that good?
granular.
I just want, Elaine, are you shaking your head yes now? That's what you're saying?
Yes, I am agreeing. We do have, just so you know, we do have 3 open positions that are positions that are 3.5. They don't get benefits. They don't. They're not part of the whole package. So they're much more reasonable. So that's.
But are you
What?
saying that the difference of 4 that we're talking about, you are saying that there are really 3.5 people that need to be hired?
And then we need 3.5-hour people hired. They're each hired at, say, $12,000 a year, and that's all.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I think this, at some point in the next couple of days, if you just want to put together a memo that we could send to board docs so that the board could review it at the end, Mike.
We certainly will. But
Okay.
I think for the general conversation is we're looking at a number of 17 additional, and there's a price point, of course, that's attached to it. And I'm open and certainly knowing that we're going to have questions about this, and then we can move forward with Mary's conversations still.
Okay. Larry, and then Deb, and then Nora.
Okay. My kids never would have gotten through school without the TAs and the EAs, so I certainly understand their importance. I also understand that, what we're doing now isn't even 3-dimensional chess, it's 4-dimensional chess. Every single decision that we make has impacts in all these other areas that hopefully we can see, but often we can't. So I understand the complications. I do have a few questions and concerns, though. One is, since TAs have more responsibility than EAs, and their marginal cost is not that much higher, if we were to hire TAs for some of these positions instead of EAs, could they again help with the coverage when we need it? If a teacher is going to devote some time to the virtual learners, at least as a TA in the classroom to help maintain some sort of order in a general ed classroom. So I'd sort of like to know the budget implications of doing that. I'd sort of like to know whether we could hire 42.49s and save the benefits, because the benefits are at least as much as the salaries in a lot of these cases. So, I figure, and then my other big concern about this is we're hiring these people, we're contracting them, and then we are going to shut down and be fully virtual. So, and yet we're still going to be continuing to pay them. So is there any way that we can sort of contract in our contract, can we say you only get paid for the days you work and we decide what days you work? Or is there an outside firm that we could get these people through, certainly with the negotiation with the union? But I hate to take on this, basically $50,000 a person have them for a month, and then be shut down for 2 months, and still have that cost when we will have all the other costs associated with being remote. So I'm sorry I threw a lot at you, but hopefully your memory's better than mine, and you know what I
So,
asked.
Ms. Fennick, before you answer, if you would allow me to answer some of Larry's questions, which I have to be honest with you, Larry, we thought about all of those things. To be honest with you, we talked about all of those things. We considered different ways to try to make this work as opposed to hiring X amount of personnel. And you know, I will say, you know, again, not to talk about other districts, they're in the same boat. I mean, districts that are hiring 45 teachers probably won't use them again in that capacity. These are some of the realities, unfortunately, we have to live with. I don't know what the overall cost would be between a TA and an EA. We can certainly get you those numbers. But you know, we did consider everything that you were saying for sure. So I know Elaine wanted to answer some of those other questions you had.
Right. Right now, the principals are asking for the aides. They want teacher aides or educational assistants. I'm sorry, I should say. Also, Larry, every person that I have hired, I have made it very clear to each one of them that if you know, Governor Cuomo says we're working from home, that I would have to let them go. They understand that. They understand this is really more a temporary job. Hopefully they would be able to, you know, apply for positions, full-time positions down the line, but they are fully aware that this will not last. And at the end of the school year, God willing, the pandemic's over, they also will not be returning.
Elaine, what if we shut down without the governor requiring us to shut down because of the conditions on the ground in Port Washington? Would that be covered the same way?
Mike?
Because there's no legal force behind that. That is a district decision for the safety of our students, rather than the governor, who has the legal authority to say you're not doing this anymore.
That's a great question. I would say it's something that we would have to consult our attorneys with, and that may happen, Larry. I mean, it really might happen, just like what we did in early spring. We did the same thing, and we may have to do that. So if and when we do, we should know what those implications are.
Thank you. Just throwing them out there, not necessarily opining one way or the other.
Thanks, Larry.
Thanks,
I think was Deborah next?
If you say so, I'm just going to go on your word.
Yeah, you're next, and then Nora.
Okay.
It takes
so
a
first
couple
of
of
all,
seconds to open the chat.
I appreciate the brainstorming that went into dividing this number in half. So I thank everybody for that. Along the lines of what Larry asked, you know, we closed one elementary school a few days ago. Do these individuals get paid, since there's nobody at the school to monitor the bathroom and recess and in the hallways and lunchtime and all that? Will these individuals be paid on those sporadic, I hope, individual days that an individual school is shut down? Do we know the answer?
Deborah, yes, they would be paid because they're considered full-time employees. But you have to remember, the principals have already been working remotely, virtually, since, you know, back in March. So they already have assignments and whatnot that the teacher aides can also be doing.
Okay. Or the EAs as well?
Utilizing them. And if at any time that we're, you know, that there's really no need, I'll be having discussions with them, letting them know.
Okay, I trust you, but you just said the teacher's aides, but we're talking about EAs. So
I'm sorry, I keep saying that. Educational assistants.
So there are things for them to do,
yes,
even when a school is shut down, even for a day. Okay.
Right. We would utilize them last year.
Okay. So we keep referencing the October opening, but Schreiber and Weber are at the fullest capacity I think they're going to be for quite some time. So there's really no population change within those schools. So we're talking about 15 EAs at the elementary schools envisioned when they go full on, is there a priority between Schreiber and Weber, which we've already seen functioning at, I'll say, full capacity given our hybrid? Is there a priority between Schreiber and Weber and then the elementary schools in a couple of weeks, where this could be staggered? Or is this something that really needs to be staffed now?
So I can answer that, Ms. Fennick, if you don't mind, and then you can always add to it.
You
You're
know.
always much richer. Yes, Deb, everything's a priority right now. So universally, we want to have all hands on deck as soon as possible.
Okay.
Dr. Hines, are we, just to tag on to Deb's question, because I think her concern is, do we not have the coverage that we should have at those schools? Are we using substitutes and other things to fill in?
We
until
are,
add
and exactly, and I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, I don't want the community to think that, you know, we're not okay at Weber and Schreiber. We are, but this is going to help. Yeah, so it's coverage, it's spotty coverage. You know, we're trying to grab over here, grab over there. We want to make it as consistent as possible.
Okay, my final question is, and I realize that nobody here has the crystal ball, but does anybody foresee an additional ask? In other words, you know what I mean.
I'm being honest with you. You know, like everything that we're doing, we plan for it, we operationalize it, we assess it, and then we determine if and when it's working and if and when something else needs to change. Now, I would like to think, you know, we will exhaust every option before there is another ask. But is that possible? I think it is. Is it possible? I mean, is it happening right now? This is the only ask that's in front of us that we're asking for right now.
Dr. Hines, I think that's what we would hope you were doing. So I think the entire community can rest assured that if that is the process, it's not that I think people think we keep making changes because we aren't planning well or don't know what we're doing. But the truth is, nobody's ever done this before. And so we're going to be responsible and not be afraid to say this isn't working, and we're going to pivot. So I appreciate that we put it in the context of this is the best way to be responsibly servicing our students. Nora, you had the next question.
Actually, my questions were asked by the last couple of speakers. But I am glad that we're going to get a memo, because I'm sort of losing track of the numbers. And one of the questions just that I had was whether in terms of how quickly we're going to be able to hire the 10 that you, Elaine, said you're going to be contacting, or, you know, that you've already, I guess, spoken with. Are they part of the additional 17, or is this, or not? I mean, I just want to know how far along we could be in the process of filling in these positions that I understand we need.
Yes, it is part of the 17.
So after those 10, we would need 5 more, potentially, depending on how they're allocated, but potentially 5 more to cover the elementary schools, and then the additional 6, right? To
2.
cover Schreiber and West. 2?
Right. Well, it's 17 altogether, right? 17 altogether.
That memo. Yes.
We will have that as soon as possible. So,
okay, I just wanted to get. I wanted to know about that 10.
Absolutely, and I think, you know, Nora, to your first point in your question, to Elaine's credit, she has really been extremely proactive in making sure that, you know, these interviews have taken place earlier, which puts us in a really good position to have this discussion right now.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Deborah, go ahead, and then we really do need to move along to the total cost. So Deborah, can you ask your question as quickly as possible?
I just wanted to thank Elaine for that. So I couldn't unmute fast enough. Thank you, Elaine, for being so proactive.
And clearly on top of things. So I appreciate that. So my next question is, I guess there's no way to minimize cost by having parent volunteers, because I've seen and heard parents saying, you know, I'll help out at arrival, I'll help at dismissal. I don't know if there are legal issues involved, contractual issues. I don't know if having kids from Schreiber and the Schreiber experience help out. Just trying to think outside the box.
Yep.
Ideas may be completely beyond the legal realm of possibilities, and I feel
And not to be an answer hog, but I will answer this one as well. We actually looked into that, just so you know. We consulted our attorneys. We spoke to the elementary principals, actually all the principals, and it's not an option we could pursue.
Beth, with regards to moving on, I think we need to have a consensus of the board that we're okay
Yes.
with adding these 17,
Yeah,
right?
I got it
Because
now.
some
Yep.
are, yeah, okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, so we've had the conversation. If anybody has any additional questions, please bring them up now, because I think the silence of questions, I'm going to assume that people are satisfied with the recommendations of our administrators. So speak up. You don't even have to post in the chat. Otherwise, we're going to move on to costs. Going once, going twice. Thank you, everybody, for listening to this clearly thought out recommendation and giving our support to the administration. Now, Mary, we can move on.
That's 6. Okay. All right, I just wanted to revise some numbers here. Pandemic supplies that include things such as masks, sanitizer, wipes, foggers, and so on. We have spent about $292,000. I have a list that I can go down in detail, or I can tell you basically that things such as dehumidifiers, pods for storage, portable sinks, which we have budgeted the amounts because you need to know what we anticipate spending, not what we have actually spent in dollars so far. Things like bandwidth for bow tie and carts for the delivery of lunch, and the desks that we ordered. All of those items it came to $1,457,780. Now, of that, the board had authorized a $500,000 appropriation in this year's budget, and they did authorize a transfer for the overage in the one-to-one initiative. So that then meant that for other than personnel reasons, we are over budget by $595,211. Anything but personnel. Now, if we go and add on to that the cost for the middle school supervision, the physical education teacher, the revised number for EAs with their salary and benefits, and the COVID coordinator, which the board did approve at the last board meeting. That brings the grand total of expenses to $2,729,080. An overage of $1,866,511.
Mary, can you say that number again, please?
The overall expenditures are $2,729,080. The overage is $1,866,511. And these are rounded numbers. They're based on the costs that were provided to me when purchase orders were put in. The numbers may not be exact to the penny, but they are very close in dollars. And then I suppose you'd like to talk about how we might pay for it?
Yes, Mary, that would be wonderful.
Okay.
Thank you.
Our audit documentation has been provided to the external auditors. They will be doing a some sort of a presentation, perhaps a Zoom presentation at our October meeting. And they have not totally confirmed our numbers yet, but we anticipate that our closing unassigned fund balance will have increased by $1,500,000. That number, so the total number will be 6 million. I'm giving you a round number because it's not the audited number, $6,500,000, where last year we ended with an audited number of $5,062,255. That will give us an unassigned fund balance of 3.99%. And you're not allowed legally to exceed 4%. So from that point of view, we are in a good position relative to COVID. This, of course, does not address whether the state will take back any of our state aid. It's my responsibility to keep reminding you that that may happen, and then we have to go back and figure that piece out. But as of the moment, we do have an additional $1.5 million in our fund balance. If the board agrees, we will at some point as the budget season moves forward, ask you to pass a resolution which would increase our budget, would not impact the taxes in any way, because we will take this 1,500,000 or 1,866,000, which is what we believe the number to be at this point in time, and to increase our budget by that, because legally we cannot exceed our budget.
Thank you, Mary. Do you have anything else to add, or should we go to questions?
I do not have anything else to add.
Okay. I think Larry, you were first, and then Deb.
Actually, I think it was the other way around. I think Deb's first and then me.
I think Deb's other comment was from earlier, so I think you're next.
Okay, all right. So I think it's great that we got up to 3.99. That's been a real struggle, and I really appreciate your work in getting us there. So I guess my net, my question is, so there'll be really about $370,000 or so lowering of our overall reserves from last year to this year. Will that have any impact on our borrowing for our construction work as we go forward, or will our credit worthiness will still be pretty much the same? I know you can't answer that question. I'm just asking for your experienced guess that it shouldn't affect our ability to borrow. Would that be correct?
I do not think it will affect our ability to borrow, since we have gotten very good short-term rates, and that was with our existing $5 million unassigned fund balance.
Okay, I appreciate it, and thanks for your work on all of this.
Thank you.
Deborah?
My question was about the state aid, but Ms. Callahan already answered it. But I did hear that the governor wasn't going to adjust state aid now until November, so I don't know if I heard correctly, but
You did hear correctly.
True.
Yeah.
For a little while.
Well, I don't know that it matters. Yes and no. I wish he would just, if he's going to do it, just tell us what the numbers are. The sooner he does, the easier it is for us to plan. So every time he kicks that can down, I don't know if it's a few. I think it's it's like ripping the Band-Aid off versus taking it off one hair at a time. And it is making it difficult to plan. So let's make the point that the later this number comes in the year, the harder it is for us to adjust anything because of it. So it's a untenable situation.
But the
ahead,
more
Glenn.
we will have received, and every dollar we receive is a dollar in our bank. So
Yeah,
I mean,
I think when he makes the
better to get it and bill as much stuff into September as we possibly can.
Emily, go ahead. You're muted, Emily.
Okay, I just wanted to make a point of clarification. So we talk about our closing unassigned, which means that when we had to close school, when we closed schools last year from March on, there was cost savings in not operating the buildings, and we're listing that number as a 1.5 million. I believe, however, that it was actually more than 1.5 million. Wasn't the one-to-one initiative taken out of our fund balance from last year that gave us savings? So I just want to, again, I'm trying today to just bring things up that may have taken place in the past to try to bring people all on the same page today. So
the one-to-one initiative, right? The one-to-one initiative was spent as part of last year's budget, probably except for the increase that we didn't have. Is that correct, Mary?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. So
thank you.
That was my only point of contact. I do also want to say, I think in light, again, what Dr. Hines pointed out about other school districts having lots of other money, spending a lot more than we have, I think it's just part of what the culture of Port Washington has always been, is that we've always been, I think, more conservative in our spending than our neighbors. And we've done a really good job, I believe, in managing the expectations of our community and the needs of our students and our teachers with our budgets. So I want to thank Ms. Callahan and Dr. Hines and Dr. Shields and Dr. Meoli for thinking with that in mind.
Thanks, Emily. I do want to move on to we have one community comment I do want to read, but before I get to that, as I've been watching this meeting and realizing that this is really sort of important information for the community, and there are 25 people watching, Dr. Hines and Ms. Callahan, I don't know how you feel about this, but perhaps a brief PowerPoint presentation at the next board meeting when we have more public participation. It shouldn't take too much time, and we've all asked our questions and things, but I really think it might be important for people to understand where we are financially. And judging from the emails we're getting, I don't think there's widespread community understanding. So would you guys be okay with adding that as one of our discussion items, a budget update?
We certainly will.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Nora. I'm going to read, we have one question from Ms. Lavigne. Dr. Hines, you stated that you explored using parent volunteers and high school students to help fill gaps in arrival and dismissal. The conclusion was it was not a viable option. What is the reason? Seniors are already used in the schools, and parent volunteers have been there to help out with events like book fairs and picture taking. So I would like to know what the reasons are for not utilizing this resource during the pandemic.
Sure. There was a myriad of reasons. I think the top two had to do with liability issues and concerns for the school district, and that was by far the number one. And to put a parent in the position of supervising children coming and going during a pandemic just was not recommended.
And I would like to just add too, all of those other things are in addition to what when we use parent volunteers for book fairs and when we use them for photo day, those are in addition to the staff that are already supervising children. They're there to make the events run smoother, but it's not in lieu of paid supervision. Correct? I mean, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you. I see no other community comments. Does anybody else see anything? Do we have any other comments from the board or questions that anybody has on budget? I want to thank everybody. This was a really comprehensive meeting. I think we got through all of the work that we needed to get through, and we have accomplished a lot. I hope everybody has the everybody feels a little bit more comfortable with where we are financially. And Dr. Hines, I hope you feel comfortable with walking away from this, knowing that you guys can now do the work that you need to do.
No, we are very thankful for your support, and we'll continue to work very hard moving forward.
And I just want to
Thank you
thank Beth for running. Beth, thank you for running a very well-run, informative meeting, and thank you to all the administrators who participated. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Miss. Thank you, President. In the words of my predecessor, thank you, President Johnson. I'm sorry, I am not Mr. Kirpin here. We miss you, Mr. Kirpin, if you're out there in the world watching us. So I don't have any music to play us out, but Ms. Callahan and Dr. Hines, if we can have that presentation for the next board meeting, just to bring the rest of the community up to date, it would be greatly appreciated. And to Dr. Mioli and Dr. Shields and Ms. Fennick, your very thorough presentations have made, I think, the entire board very comfortable with where we are right now, both financially and staff-wise, and we really do appreciate
Beth, for a second,
Okay.
I thought you were going to ask Mrs. Callahan and Dr. Hines to sing us out. Right after the music.
No, but Dr. Mioli could do that. Dr.
Yes, he
Mioli,
can.
I think you can give us a
Dr.
little
Mioli,
song.
you could sing.
Do not give me an open microphone and a captive audience. You know
You
better.
have an open microphone and a captive audience. If you have anything you'd like to share, Dr. Mioli, go ahead.
Unfortunately, I have an 11 o'clock appointment that I have to run to.
All right.
But
So
perhaps
we will
next-
let you
Me
all,
too.
next time, we'll let you all get back to work. Thank you all. We'll see you Tuesday.